Hi everyone, A&P Adventures here.
I'm Aaron.
And I'm Patrick.
It is a beautiful day in Central Park.
It is gorgeous.
And I think we should show it off.
Yeah, let's do
This
it.
is the first part of our Central Park series, Central Park 1.
Yeah.
And some might call this the highlights, although there's so much to see in Central Park. How do you, delineate what is what?
You definitely get some heavy hitters on this tour.
Yeah. It is May 5th, 2023, Cinco de Mayo.
That's right.
And it is about 14 degrees Celsius, about 58 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's a beautiful sunny day. They're doing some work in the park. They're trimming some trees and landscaping a little bit, so we might hear a little bit of residual noise behind us, but that's in order to keep our park beautiful.
Yeah,
so,
they're just keeping it nice.
Yeah. All right, let's get going.
Yeah. All right.
Here we go. We're starting right here at Literary Walk. We're starting with, a heavy hitter, William Shakespeare right here. So Literary Walk immortalizes 4 prominent writers, the first being William Shakespeare. The others are Robert Burns, Sir Walter Scott, and Fitzgreen Halleck. Now Shakespeare actually originally faced the other direction, but across this beautiful landscaped area that you'll see here in just a second is a statue of Christopher Columbus, and the organization that installed Christopher Columbus was upset that Shakespeare's bum was facing Christopher Columbus. But it was far too costly to turn the entire statue, including the pedestal. So they just turned that top part. So that's why we have the inscription facing this way, but Shakespeare facing the other way.
We'll zoom in. There's Christopher Columbus just on the other side of this beautiful garden. I'll zoom in there. You can see there's the top of Christopher there.
The azaleas are in perfect bloom today.
Are.
It's just gorgeous this day. They say April showers bring May flowers, and I think they were right.
They sure were.
Yeah.
I mean, June is busting out all over, even though it's still May.
The lusty month of May.
That's right.
Yeah. So we're basically at the base of what is known as the mall. And again, this area of it it highlights 4 prominent writers. It's known as Literary Walk. So perfectly lit right here and basking in the sun is Robert Burns. Robert Burns might most be notable for Auld Lang Syne.
Looks very... he is very fancy.
Very fancy,
He's
yeah.
like just basking in the sun. He must have had quite an upbringing. Can't you imagine him just being like, coming home from school, "Oh, Mummy,
Yeah.
I had a lovely riding lesson today. The most magnificent horse."
Well, he is Scottish, though.
Oh, well...
Just put you on the spot. He is the Scottish national poet, Robert Burns. So continuing along the mall, you can see it's a Friday here in New York, and the mall is very busy. Lots of folks out enjoying this beautiful day. And this is only the shape of things to come. It'll get busier as the summer hits even harder. And so we already saw William Shakespeare and Robert Burns, and we've been passing Fitzgreen Halleck as well, who was the first statue of an American in the park, and then Sir Walter Scott is the other statue here on Literary Walk. But the next statue we want to take you to is one of the more important statues in the park for a couple of reasons. One reason, it's the newest statue in the park. So it was established in August 2020 and is the first monument in the park since 1965. But more importantly, it's the first monument in the park to depict actual women. So prior to this statue, the only statues of women that we had in the park were fictional characters. Mother Goose,
Angels, various
Alice
angels.
in Wonderland. But now we have actual people. Sojourner Truth, Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton right here. And they're all doing what they are most commonly known for. So Sojourner Truth is speaking, Susan B. Anthony organizing, and Elizabeth Cady Stanton writing.
That is really terrific. Oh, that beautiful blue sky in the back. Jeez.
Gorgeous day.
Terrific.
All right, continuing along the mall. Again, they're bringing down some branches today around us, and we just heard the wood chipper going. You might have heard that in the background. They will then use that mulch throughout the park. Sometimes the branches of the trees that they're taking down, or even trees that might have fallen from a storm. Sometimes if it's a good piece of wood, they'll save that and use it for structures or benches or fences in the park. Most notably in the Ramble, we have some of those rustic structures. Also the Hellet Nature Sanctuary, we'll see some of that.
I love how green the leaves have changed, and with the blue sky in the background.
Yeah, these are American elms all on either side, and they really kind of create a canopy over the mall. And the mall is a 1/4 mile long. It's the only deliberate straight line in Central Park. So there might be other straight lines, but this is the only one that the park designers intended to implement here in the park. So the idea being that folks would come in when the park opened in the mid-1800s at the southeastern corner of the park, kind of by the Plaza Hotel, and they would get out of their carriages and they would make their way into this area, and then they would promenade down the mall up to the Naumburg Bandshell, which we'll be seeing up here in just a little bit, where there might be music playing, maybe some social dancing, and they would also make their way out to the lake and see the Angel of Waters fountain that we'll be seeing coming up here in just a little bit. In the distance there, that's known as Rumsey Playfield. And it was a playground for quite some time. I think it was a restaurant originally in there, and then it became a playground. That's where Mother Goose is located, by the way. But now they use it for summer concerts. Yes, she lives there,
This
Mother
is
Goose.
where she lives.
Yeah.
Did you already talk about these being protected and with
No, I don't think I did, actually. Yeah.
It's really great. These American elms are protected. You can see this fence here to keep people out of this lawn, to protect these beautiful trees. And for the most part, people adhere to the rule of not crossing over and hanging out on the lawn. Every once in a while, you'll see someone over there. But, you know, the parks, men and women that work for the parks department usually inform people that they shouldn't be on the lawn. So it's nice that it's always kept so nice and green.
Now, the southern end of the mall is Literary Walk, where we began. The northern end of the mall is Bethesda Terrace, where we're headed, but we're going to veer away for just a little bit and show off a couple of statues as well as Sheep Meadow over here. So here we go. We're going to journey away from the mall. As we make our way from the mall, you'll see a big opening in the distance where the trees open up and there's a giant grass field or yard. It is basically New Yorker's yard. That's Sheep Meadow, 15 acres. It was the most expensive part of the park to build, and the reason for that is they had to blast out a lot of the bedrock that was in this area in order to create this big field. And then they brought in several feet of dirt from New Jersey. And it's called Sheep Meadow because there were sheep there from 1864 to 1934. They would spend their days there on the Sheep Meadow lawn, and then their nights they would spend their evenings in what is now Tavern on the Green, the popular restaurant on the west side of the park. And the buildings in the distance would be the southwestern corner of the park. Columbus Circle would be over there.
Columbus Circle's right there. That's the corner that you're looking at right there, that little row of skyline.
Now, as we make our way back to the mall, we want to show off a couple of statues. The first one is right here, Eagles and Prey. This was cast in Paris in 1850, created by Christophe Fratin. And you can see it depicts a helpless goat caught in the talons of two eagles. This is the oldest known sculpture in the park, again, cast in Paris in 1850, so prior to the park even opening. Now, the original park plans didn't call for statues or monuments, but immediately after the park opened, the public expressed a lot of interest in statues, but they didn't have the money budgeted for that. So what they did was they were all privately funded by donors and organizations. Most were proposed by citizens groups, and oftentimes those reflected the European immigrants who wanted to see themselves on display in these public areas. Now here we have Victor Herbert. Victor Herbert was sculpted by Edmund Thomas Quinn, commissioned by the American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers, unveiled in 1927 by his daughter Ella. What's interesting about Victor Herbert as we start to make our way back towards the mall is you'll see the band shell coming into view, and he oftentimes conducted the concerts here at the Naumburg band shell, so it seems only fitting that his sculpture would be right there. On our left is Ludwig von Beethoven, dedicated to the park in 1884, sculpted by Henry Bearer.
Never heard of him.
Beethoven?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I'm even saying it wrong. Maybe it's Beethoven. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, that is fantastic.
I mean, just with that blue sky behind it today, so beautiful. And this is the Naumburg band shell coming into view right now. So you have to think about those folks who would come in to the park in the mid-1800s. They would show up in this, there would, be a band, an orchestra up there in the band shell playing live music, perhaps conducted by Victor Herbert.
Yeah, and major entertainment at the time. Of course, obviously before cell phones, computers, and modern technology. So I love that the idea of, coming to the band shell and sitting and enjoying the music, and that's your entertainment for the day. All these benches around, these original benches, these wood benches. I love to imagine, people 100 years ago coming here and just enjoying the classical music. I'm gonna come in close on these benches because they're really cool.
Yeah, the details.
Yeah. This is one of the renovated ones, which might even need some love again, but they're all wood, so it's constant maintenance and they get worn out pretty quickly. But I love that they keep them here.
So we're gonna make our way over to Bethesda Terrace, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, I almost tripped and fell. That's what happens in the park.
That's right.
You just enjoy the park, and maybe you go on a nice trip.
Yeah.
So as we make our way up here, we'll be crossing a bit of a thoroughfare. You'll see the horses and carriage rides going past up here. There is no vehicular traffic in the park. Every now and then you will see some cars, but that is the Central Park Conservancy or the NYPD, the police department. But other than that, it's just pedestrians, bikers, scooters, pedicabs, and carriages. And that's all you'll see in the park. And so we're about to cross Olmsted and Vaux Way, which is what this little thoroughfare is called, named for our two parks designers. We'll talk about them in just a little bit. You'll also see some kiosks, a gentleman selling pretzels and hot dogs.
Classic hot dog cart.
Here we go. We have to give us a second as we watch for, I think we're safe. Yeah. We're not going to be run over by any horse and buggies.
Nope.
And we're gonna have some beautiful views of the Angel of Waters fountain below us as we make our way over here. So the arcade is below us. We'll head down there next. But we first want to bring you up here to let you see this this beautiful shot from up above. One of the most iconic spots, not just in Central Park, but I think in New York City. Looks like we might have had a proposal today or a wedding down there with the rose petals in the shape of a heart. The fountain there in the middle.
You see lots of proposals and marriages in the park, especially on nice weather days like today. Gosh, this is gorgeous.
We'll also have lots of competing musicians in this area, which you'll probably hear as we make our way down. I hear two of them right now on either side of the terrace.
And that's the lake, Central Park Lake, right behind the fountain, which we'll talk about when we get down there.
All right, should we head down to the arcade?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Here we go. We've got a lovely horse and carriage ride right here. It can be quite pricey, by the way. This is the longer route to come all the way up here. The shorter one is about $65, not including tip. The longer one ends up tacking on. I think it's roughly about double that.
Yeah, they are pricey. So just know you're going to drop a chunk of change if you want to take a horse and carriage ride around Central Park.
Now, as we make our way around here, we'll show off some of the carvings that lead down to the arcade, because they're really quite stunning, and they're meant to signify day and night, and you'll see that as we make our way over to them, that they're you wouldn't catch it if you didn't know exactly what they were, but once you know what the theme is, it makes sense. For example, we have a little rooster right here, signifying day.
Yeah, they are so neat. That would never happen today, that kind of like stonework, mason.
Yeah, and as we make our way over to the night,
There are 2 main staircases on either side and 4 railings, and each of those railings represents one of the 4 seasons. Now the other really ornamented part of this area is the arcade. So we're going to make our way down the
all right, so we're making our way down now to the arcade, and as we make our way under, we'll probably go quiet when we get underneath, because there's oftentimes a musician, so we'll let the music do create the enjoyment as we make our way under. Oh, I see a bride and
Just
groom.
talking about marriages and engagements, and here's a photo session of a bride and groom, as we'll see them as we go by.
Now, the tiles you're going to see on the ceiling are all Minton tiles. They're from the renowned Minton and Company in England. And it's the only ceiling in the world to feature these tiles. 49 panels and nearly 16,000 elaborately patterned tiles all over. They had a major restoration in 2007, cleaning and repairing. A couple movies you might recognize from this area: The Avengers, Ransom. And we'll just take our time under here and let you enjoy a little bit of the music and a little bit of the view. Coming into view and framed so perfectly right now is the Bethesda Fountain, and we'll walk around the Bethesda Fountain, get to see some close-up angles from it all over. But this was built between 1861 and 1864. Took a bit of time because of the Civil War. Olmsted, one of our 2 parks designers, I love that. Olmsted, one of our 2 parks designers who was in charge of this, was actually pulled away from his work here on the park to be the head of what would ultimately become the Red Cross during the war. Now at the very top up there, that's the Angel of Waters statue, and it references the Gospel of John, which describes an angel blessing the pool of Bethesda and giving it healing powers. The fountain commemorates the Croton water system, which provided fresh water to New York City in 1842 for the very first time. And in her left hand, it's sort of hard to delineate from down below, she's carrying a lily. And that's a symbol of the water's purity, which was important to a city that had suffered from a devastating cholera epidemic before this new water system. And then underneath the trickling water, there are 4 cherubs: health, purity, peace, and temperance. Now, this is the only statue commissioned for the park, and the first time a woman received a public art commission in New York City, Emma Stebbins. You'll recognize this from loads of movies and TV. Home Alone 2, Hair, Tommy Boy, all filmed here, as well as quite a few TV shows. And like I said earlier, this is one of the most popular spots of the park and the city for sightseeing and for photographs.
They do empty out the water in the winter time. So when we stroll through Central Park in the winter, that water is completely empty.
And later in the summer, you'll start to see some lily pads all throughout the waters as well. And usually some other aquatic plants are in there too. And then we have the lake over here. Now the lake is 20 acres or about 8 hectares. Now this is where you'll see the rowboats in the park, the Venetian gondolas. There used to be ice skating here on the lake as well. And it's just one of the most picturesque spots of the park. And for that reason, we also have the Loeb Boathouse along the edge, which is a restaurant right there at the end of the lake. There's also a casual fare express counter, so if you want to get some, a light bite to take into the park with you, you can stop there to get it. The rowboats leave from over in that area also.
Yeah.
Shall we make our way to Bow Bridge?
Let's do it. Look at that reflection of the clouds. That is really cool.
Oh, it is stunning. Beautiful day, May 2023. So as we make our way over to Bow Bridge, I'll just tell you a little bit about Central Park. It's 843 acres or 340 hectares. The perimeter is about 6 miles or about 9.5 kilometers. It's about 2.5 miles north to south, about 4 kilometers, about a half a mile east to west, about 8/10 of a kilometer. Now the park sees 38 million visitors a year, about 58 miles of path or about 93 kilometers, 8 bodies of water, 36 bridges, 21 playgrounds, 9,000 benches, and 26,000 trees. And look at these azaleas coming into bloom right now. They're
they're just at their peak.
Perfect. If you haven't checked out our Central Park 5 tour yet, the Ramble, we take you to Azalea Pond on that one and show off the azaleas there.
Just get this beautiful view. My gosh. Look at that. Holy moly.
Again, that's the Loeb Boathouse there in the distance. It was designed by park architect Calvert Vaux, 1874. Also popular for some movies, 27 Dresses, When Harry Met Sally. So our 2 designers of the park are Olmsted and Vaux. And the first part of the park opened in 1858, and that's the portion that we're in right now, pretty much everything up into the lake. And the final section of the park wasn't completed until 1876. The park goes from 59th Street on the southern end all the way up to 110th Street on the northern end. Again, about 2.5 miles. And within the park, you'll see a zoo, carousel, outdoor theater, skating rinks, boating, hiking, jogging, softball fields. There's so much to do in Central Park. It really is New Yorkers' backyard.
Oh yeah, it's New Yorkers' playground.
But it's also meant for, tourist enjoyment too. So everyone gets to enjoy it. We're making our way out to Bow Bridge, cast iron bridge. It's named because it resembles the bow of an archer or a violinist, those kind of old school bows for the violins. It was built between 1859 and 1862. Busy on the Bow Bridge today.
Yeah.
I started to say the Ramble because if we were to continue all the way across Bow Bridge, we would end up in the Ramble, which is our Central Park Part 5 tour. And the Ramble is just twisting and winding and curvy paths and trails all through a densely wooded part of the park.
This is clearly a very popular because it's such a beautiful spot. It's a beautiful picture spot. You'll get the skyline in the background along with, being in the middle of Central Park.
And we're basically at the midway point of the lake right now, out over on Bow Bridge, out over the lake. See a little bit of the Dakota creeping up. We'll end our tour over there today.
Just stunning. And as Aaron said earlier, that if we continue across Bow Bridge, we would end up right in the middle of the Ramble section of the park, which is what we call our Central Park 5, our 5th Central Park tour. You can check that out.
All right, should we continue on?
Yeah, let's do it. We'll get a nice shot of Bow Bridge from down below too, so you can actually see the shape of the bridge. It is really pretty.
We love the planters on the bridge too, so beautiful. We're just gonna curve down. You see another little vendor right here selling ice cream sandwiches. Perfect on this nice warm day, sunny day. Also some honey roasted nuts. Not mad at that either. So you can see this part, this grassy portion right here is fenced off. So they're probably just regrowing some grass here.
I want to say they did a great job too, because this was like a big dirt patch.
Yeah.
Last season, and they worked hard to fill this grass in. That looks beautiful. And there, of course, is Bow Bridge. We'll get one more shot of it as we get a little farther away too.
Now there in the distance, that's the San Remo. The San Remo is those two towers up there, that luxury hotel, or it's not hotel, excuse me, luxury apartment building. And the San Remo was built in 1930. It's 27 stories. Some residents there over time have been Barry Manilow, Tiger Woods, Steven Spielberg, Glenn Close, Dustin Hoffman, Bruce Willis. Not Madonna.
Not Madonna.
She tried, but the co-op board said, no, you may not live in our material world.
That's right. Here's another shot of Bow Bridge. Just so beautiful on this picture perfect day. Look at that reflection. That's nice.
It is gorgeous. See some birds maybe making a home underneath the bridge as well.
I don't blame them.
Yeah.
Shall we continue on?
Yeah, let's make our way up to Cherry Hill Fountain. Now, all along the lake, you might have spotted a couple of little shacks along the water's edge. So when the park first opened, the idea was that the gondola would go on rides around the lake, and you could hop off at these little outposts and then explore that area and then get back onto the gondola and continue on to the next one, like a little water ride at Disney World or something.
It's like the buses, like the hop on, hop off.
Yes, yeah, exactly. We do still have boats on the lake, but that is not one of the features that they have, unfortunately. I wish they would bring that back.
Yeah.
So the reason the park came about was basically in 1811. There was the grid plan, the commissioner's grid plan was established that gridded out all the streets of New York City. And it had no parks planned. And you have to keep in mind that between 1821 and 1855, the population of Manhattan quadrupled. And so it really highlighted a need for green space. Also, William Cullen Bryant, who was the editor of the New York Evening Post, fought very hard for there to be a park in the city. You might know Bryant Park. It is named after him. And so the city finally decided to have a competition to find park designers to design a park for New York City. We'll pause on the history to talk about the Cherry Hill Fountain right here. Originally, this would have been a drinking fountain for horses. Now it's for birds and for these tourists who are climbing inside. And it's not the Friends Fountain. A lot of people think that this is the fountain used for the opening credits of the popular television show Friends. But that was on a soundstage, a studio in Los Angeles. But it is kind of modeled after it.
It is a beautiful fountain.
Muppets Take Manhattan, filmed here.
You might be noticing a lot of these what we call pedicabs, because they're pedaling people around. Those are pricey. Those are about $6 a minute to get a ride in one of those pedicabs. That's pricey. So be ready to drop some change if you want to take a pedicab ride.
So going back to the history, 1857 is when the park started construction. The first part opened in 1858. And it was completed in 1876. Now, at the time, there were basically 18 entrances to the park called gates, and these are not like formal gates like we would think of. It's basically just, a bit of a wall, and there's an opening in the wall, and that's where folks would kind of enter in. But they are named. Each entrance honors a group or a profession that makes New York this great metropolis. So some of the gates, the names are scholars, artists, engineers, investors, pioneers, women, boys, girls. One of the most significant ones is the Strangers Gate at West 106, which highlights the prominent role that immigrants had in building New York City.
I love that all the gates are so varied, just like New York. It is a melting pot, and the different names of various gates, sort of match that. I love it.
It starts to get a little quieter as we make our way up to Strawberry Fields, meant to be a little peaceful section of the park. In fact, as we make our way up here, you may even spot signs that say Quiet Zone. And Strawberry Fields indeed is a memorial to John Lennon, based on his famous song, Strawberry Fields Forever. And before we hit the memorial, you'll see a plaque coming up on the left that was, it shows all the 121 countries that have endorsed this memorial. You might even see your country on there. Hopefully it's showing up on this sunshiny day. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You can see at the top.
Pretty terrific.
Now we'll talk about the memorial before we get there, and then once we get to the mosaic, we'll go quiet to observe the quiet zone that's here. But again, it's named after one of John Lennon's favorite songs, Strawberry Fields Forever. Dedicated in 1985, Yoko Ono worked with the Central Park Conservancy to create this peaceful memorial made by Italian craftsmen and dedicated by the city of Naples. Here on the west side. We're basically by 72nd Street. We have one more thing we want to show you where we're going to end our tour today, which is the Dakota. We already showed off the San Remo, a luxury apartment building, but we're going to end by showing off, well, the granddaddy of all of them, I guess. The OG, and that's the Dakota.
Yeah.
Sorry, there was New York Police Department coming towards us.
Oh.
Our tour was so exciting we were going to get arrested. Oh, see? That's what I mean. It's that exciting. But here comes the Dakota coming into view right now. Now, the Dakota was completed in 1884. It was built for Edward Cabot Clark, the head of the Singer Manufacturing Company. It was the first high-end apartment building. And it was named the Dakota because at the time it was this area where it was built was quite remote and sparse and uninhabited, like the Dakota Territory of the United States, North and South Dakota. Some famous inhabitants over time: Lauren Bacall, Leonard Bernstein, Judy Garland, Roberta Flack. They did use the exterior of this for the film Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah.
And indeed, this is where John Lennon was shot, December 8th, 1980.
And Yoko Ono just moved out,
Yeah,
right?
she did. She just moved out of their apartment here at the Dakota with her views of Central Park.
She said, "Oh no, I don't want to live here anymore."
Yeah.
I love how it's one of the handful of buildings left in the city that has actual gas lamps, which is really cool.
All right, Central Park 1.
That was a fun stroll through the park on a gorgeous day, we're going to put our phone down and go enjoy the park a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for enjoying the park with us today. We're A&P Adventures.
Easy for you to say.
I know. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Patrick.
And we'll see you on our upcoming tours. If you like us, give us a like, subscribe to us, hit that bell for notifications.
All the things.
Yeah, and tell us what was your favorite part of today's tour in the comments. We'd love to hear what you liked seeing today.
Absolutely.
We'll see you on the next tour.
Take care.